The cool morning air was refreshing, a soft breeze whispering through the trees as the sun began to break through the clouds. It was a perfect kind of day for an adventure into wilderness, bright but not too warm, with a sky dotted with wisps of clouds. You had decided to get away from the suffocating monotony of your routine and embark on a solitary hike through the woods. Your footsteps echoed softly as they crunched against the forest floor, the dry leaves and twigs beneath your boots creating a rhythmic sound that matched the beat of your heart. The quiet solitude of the forest surrounded you, and you found yourself taking deep breaths of the earthy scent that the trees emitted. It felt like a different world here, far from the hustle and bustle of daily life. No cars, no noise, just the wind and the occasional bird call. The forest was dense, the trees towering above you, their thick branches forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight, casting long shadows on the ground. It was peaceful at first. You were a few miles into your hike when something caught your attention, a flicker in the corner of your vision, a shadow that didn't quite match the rhythm of the trees. You paused, glancing around, but saw nothing, just the stillness of the woods. You pushed the thought aside, continuing your walk, but with each step, the unease in your chest grew. The quiet around you seemed to stretch too far. It was unnatural. You decided to take a small detour, veering off the main trail to explore a more isolated path you'd never seen before. Something about it felt different, yet oddly inviting. Maybe it was the promise of discovering something new, or perhaps it was a strange pull of the woods. Either way, you were already too far to turn back now. The deeper you ventured, the more the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavier, colder, and the sounds of wildlife seemed to fade. The birds that had been chirping earlier were silent now. The only sound was the soft rustle of leaves underfoot. Your breath became shallow, and you found yourself quickening your pace. That's when you heard it, the first sound that made you stop dead in your tracks. A low growl, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakable once your senses tuned into it. Your heart skipped a beat. You glanced behind you, but there was nothing there, just the shadows of the trees stretching further into the distance. You tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a dog or some wild animal, but something inside you felt a chill that went beyond just the temperature dropping. The hairs on the back of your neck stood up as the growl echoed again, louder this time. Closer. You turned around, your legs already beginning to run, before your mind fully processed it. Whatever it was moving faster than you, and you could hear it drawing nearer with each passing second. Chapter 2. The Pursuit. Your breath came in ragged gasps as your feet pounded against the forest floor. Branches scraped against your arms, tearing at your clothes, but you didn't stop. You didn't even look back. The growl was closer now, much closer, and it was followed by something else. The sound of something running. Fast. Too fast. You barely dodged a low-hanging branch as it reached out to slap your face. Your heart was hammering in your chest, adrenaline coursing through your veins, but your legs were growing heavier with every step. The path had become more uneven now, and you could hear the distant sound of rushing water, which seemed to grow louder and louder with each stride. You were near the edge of a cliff, the forest parting to reveal a steep drop. You couldn't afford to slow down, but you knew there was no way around it. The trees thinned, and you saw the edge of the ravine below you. You stopped short, just before you could tumble over the edge, and turned around to face your pursuer. The figure that emerged from the shadows of the trees was unlike anything you had seen before. It was large, too large, towering over you with limbs that were unnaturally long. Its eyes were gleaming with an unnatural yellow light, and its mouth, twisted in a grotesque snarl, revealed rows of sharp, jagged teeth. Its skin, if it could even be called that, seemed to shimmer like liquid, almost translucent but dark. It was covered in patches of matted fur that clung to its bony frame. The thing crouched, its long arms hanging low to the ground, its claws scraping the earth as it moved towards you. It was like a monstrous hybrid of a wolf and a spider, its body shifting in unnatural ways, its movements jerky and unpredictable. The growl that emanated from it was guttural, vibrating deep in your chest, sending a wave of terror crashing over you. Your mind screamed at you to run, but your legs refused to move. The creature was so close now you could see its breath, hot heavy and smelling of decay. It stepped forward, and with one swipe of its claw, it struck the ground at your feet, sending dirt flying into the air. You stumbled backward, your heart racing as you looked for any way to escape. But the edge of the ravine was too close. There was no way out. Chapter 3. The Forest Friend. Just when you thought the darkness was about to swallow you whole, you heard a sound, faint at first, but growing clearer. A distant howl echoed through the trees, followed by another and another. The creature seemed to pause, its head tilting as if it had heard the call. Before you could make sense of what was happening, a figure emerged from the shadows, moving with a silent grace. It was larger than a man, but with a shape that was more familiar, more human, yet not. Its skin was pale, almost ghostly, and its eyes gleamed with a strange, otherworldly light. It moved with the stealth of a predator, its body rippling like water as it closed the distance between you and the creature. For a brief moment, the two monsters stared at each other, their eyes locked in an intense, unspoken battle of wills. Then, the creature that had been chasing you growled, a deep, resonant sound that shook the very ground beneath you. The other figure, silent as a shadow, stepped forward. The confrontation that followed was swift and brutal. The two creatures collided with an earth-shattering force, their claws scraping and snapping at each other as the ground trembled beneath their monstrous struggle. You watched, frozen in horror, as the larger creature, a figure that seemed almost human, fought to keep the other at bay. It was then that you realized something strange. The air around you had grown cold, unnaturally cold. Your breath fogged in front of you, and the ground beneath your feet seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. You looked down and saw something that made your blood run cold. A figure was rising from the earth. A face, twisted and contorted, appeared from the dirt, half-formed and impossibly real. It was the shape of a human face, eyes closed, mouth barely parted in a scream that couldn't be heard. You stared at it, your heart hammering in your chest, knowing that whatever was happening here, whatever this place was, it wasn't normal. The forest, now alive with strange energies and sounds of battle, seemed to warp and shift around you, its form changing like a living entity. The trees bent, their branches reaching out like grasping hands, and the earth trembled beneath your feet. You could hear the growls and snarls of the creatures battling it out, their struggle shaking the very fabric of reality. In the distance, you saw something or someone moving toward you through the fog. It was a figure, clad in dark robes, its face hidden beneath a hood. As it neared, you felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over you. The figure reached out, its hand glowed in ethereal light, and you could hear a voice, a whisper that sounded like 1,000 voices, all speaking at once. Run. Without thinking, you turned and bolted into the woods, your heart racing as you pushed yourself harder, faster. The sound of the battle behind you grew fainter, but the air around you remained thick with the oppressive presence of whatever had just unfolded. The figure in the distance continued to follow you, its form shifting as it moved closer, until it was all you could see in the fog. And then, just as suddenly as it had all started, everything went quiet. The creature, the forest, the figure. It was all gone. But you knew, deep down, that it was only just a beginning. Whatever you had encountered in the woods, whatever forces had been unleashed, were still out there, waiting. The return. You couldn't shake the feeling that the woods had changed you. It was as if the very air around you had been infused with something dark, something unnatural. The haunting growls, the monstrous figures. Everything had felt too real, too tangible. And yet, when you tried to recount it, the words seemed to slip through your fingers, fading into the fog of disbelief. What had you truly witnessed? The drive home felt like an eternity. The landscape outside your window seemed too still, too perfect, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Every passing tree, every curve in the road seemed to whisper of something waiting, something watching. You couldn't look at the forest the same way anymore. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves carried a sinister undertone, as if it was all part of some twisted game. At night, you could hear the sounds, muffled growls, the faint rustling of something moving through the woods just beyond your house. The eerie sensation that something was always watching you had followed you home, and it was persistent, The nights grew longer, colder, and each time you closed your eyes, the images of those monstrous creatures, of the figure in the distance, haunted your dreams. You would wake up drenched in sweat, your heart racing, only to find yourself staring into the same dark corner of your room, where the shadows seemed just a little too deep, a little too alive. And then it happened again. Chapter 5. The Forest Beckons. It had been weeks since that night in the woods. You told yourself that you would never return, that whatever had happened out there wasn't worth investigating further. But the pull, the gnawing curiosity, was always there, tugging at the edges of your mind. You tried to push it away, but it only grew stronger. The forest called to you, and no matter how much you fought it, you found yourself drawn back. This time, you weren't alone. Amelia, your skeptical girlfriend, had insisted that she would join you. Her logical mind, always in search of reason, dismissed the strange happenings you had experienced. But after weeks of hearing you wake up in the middle of the night, whispering about faces in the dirt and creatures in the trees, she couldn't ignore it any longer. "I'm coming with you," she had said one evening, when you were both sitting on the couch, too tense to enjoy the movie you were watching. "I want to see it for myself. If there's something out there, I need to know." You tried to talk her out of it, but she was determined. So, the next weekend, you both packed a small bag, grabbed a flashlight, and set off to retrace your steps. The forest, even in daylight, seemed different now, darker, heavier. You couldn't help but glance over your shoulder every few seconds, the hairs on the back of your neck prickling with unease. The very air seemed charged, as if the woods were holding their breath, waiting for something. As you walked down the familiar trail, Amelia chatted about work and life, trying to keep the mood light, but you couldn't focus on her words. Your eyes constantly scanned the trees, the ground, every shadow and every rustle in the leaves. The path was still the same, but it felt different. Something had shifted since the last time you'd walked it. "Are you sure this is the same trail?" Amelia asked after a while, her voice laced with skepticism. "It feels wrong." You couldn't explain it. It wasn't the trail itself. It was the atmosphere. It was the overwhelming sense of being watched, of something lurking just beyond the tree line. "I don't know," you muttered, glancing nervously around. "I just know I don't like it." But Amelia was determined to push forward, trying to remain calm. As you both neared the clearing near the waterfall, the very spot where you had seen the strange figure months ago, you couldn't help but feel that familiar sense of dread settle in your chest. And then, just like before, the air shifted. Chapter 6. The Shadows Return. This time, you weren't alone in the woods. This time, Amelia was there, and she, too, began to feel the unease creeping into her bones. You both reached the clearing by the waterfall, and everything seemed still at first, too still. The usual sounds of the rushing water, the chirping of the birds, the rustle of leaves, all of it had faded. Only the thick silence remained. "I don't like this," Amelia whispered, her eyes darting around the trees. "We should leave." Before you could respond, a shadow moved at the edge of your vision. A flicker, fast and almost imperceptible. Your heart skipped a beat. "Did you see that?" you asked, voice tight with fear. Amelia nodded, her hand tightening around yours. "What was that?" You tried to calm her, tried to convince yourself that it was just an animal, something normal. But deep down you knew better. The figure that had haunted your thoughts for weeks was no longer just a memory. It was here, from the shadows of the trees. It emerged, a tall, gaunt figure with elongated limbs and an unnatural gait. Its face was obscured, but the sense of malevolent intent was palpable. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, a sickly yellow that sent a wave of terror through your entire body. Amelia gasped, pulling away from you instinctively. "What the hell is that?" Before you could react, the creature lunged, moving with unnatural speed. The world around you seemed to slow as its twisted form closed the distance between you and the creature in a flash. Its clawed hands reached out, and the air itself seemed to warp with its presence. You grabbed Amelia's arm and pulled her back, stumbling over rocks and roots as you bolted toward the main path. You didn't dare look back. The sound of the creature's pursuit echoed in your ears, heavy and relentless. The air grew colder. The forest around you began to shift and twist, the trees closing in, the shadows growing deeper. The light seemed to dim as the creature's presence grew stronger. It was like the very woods were alive, suffocating you both as you ran. You could hear its footsteps, heavy and fast, behind you, getting closer with each passing second. The adrenaline coursing through your veins kept you moving, but your legs felt like lead and every breath burned in your chest. And then, just as you thought you couldn't run anymore, you saw it, the clearing ahead, the road just beyond the trees. You pushed yourself harder, barely able to hear Amelia's screams over the pounding of your heart. You broke through the trees, stumbling into the open, only to find yourself face to face with another figure, a man standing in the middle of the road. He was tall, his figure barely visible in the fading light, but his presence was unmistakable. And as you collided with him, he spoke. "Go," he said, his voice low and steady. "It's not safe here." Before you could react, the creature emerged from the trees, its eyes glowing, its body hunched and snarling. The man stepped forward, raising a hand to ward it off, and in that instant the air shimmered. A barrier of light seemed to surround him, and the creature hesitated, growling low in its throat. "Run," the man said again, his voice command. You didn't hesitate. Grabbing Amelia's hand, you turned and ran down the road, not daring to look back. Chapter 7, The Final Warning. You both made it to the safety of your car, breathless and trembling. The engine roared to life as you sped away, leaving the forest behind. The man, the creature, the woods. It all seemed like a bad dream, but the terror, the feeling of being hunted, lingered. As you drove, Amelia remained silent, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell did we just see?" "I don't know," you said, your voice barely a whisper, "but I know we shouldn't have gone back." And as you looked into the rear-view mirror, you saw something that made your blood run cold. A shadow, moving just at the edge of the road, following you. You didn't stop. You didn't dare.